Nobody should be surprised that Miami produced two first-round defensive ends from the last two teams that we saw on the field for the Canes in 2019 and 2020, and they wind up in the same NFL division, the AFC East. We got Cam Underwood on the line from State of the U to break down the NFL draft. Anything else that should be headed our way from the Miami camp? And, of course, your comments, your questions, your debate topics for Cam and myself. Cam, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good.
You enjoy the NFL draft, right? You're an NFL draft guy.
Who doesn't? Like, again, it's the same thing as recruiting. It's, it's roster building. This is the foundation of building a roster towards relevance or greatness. It's a different kind of a thing, obviously, with the, recruiting is open season, obviously. So, anyone in the universe of recruits you can kind of go after and potentially get. Obviously, you're bound by your picks in the NFL draft, but no, roster construction is a thing that's a passion of mine at whatever level. So, you're always interested, or I'm always interested to see who's going to go on where. And then also, see, of course, from one level to the next, who from the University of Miami or any other school is going to go, where they're going to go and where the projection goes for them. So, yeah.
I surveyed the three channels that were serving the NFL draft, but mostly on ESPN, just because I'm a creature of habit, and they were the originators of the coverage. And certainly I was there for 19 years as well. But that's where I, being a Mel Kiper guy from way back, since he kind of originated the cottage industry of the NFL draft being what it is today. So the point I'm leading to is that the analysis of the players is overwhelmingly positive, which it should be. They do bring up some concerns from time to time, but it's overwhelmingly positive from my viewpoint. And I think that's a good thing. That's not a criticism from me. Although I did notice in jumping the Jaylen Phillips pick, and we will get to that in a second, going to Gregory Rousseau as a little bit later down the board in the first round, going to Buffalo, that it seemed as though they had more concerns about Gregory Rousseau than they did other first rounders.
Yeah, or they were more vocal about it. Why are every time that I hop on a microphone, my phone goes crazy. I'm sorry about that, everybody. It was a little critical, but it wasn't exclusive to them. But there are questions to be asked there, and I think that some of those have been addressed and other ones maybe, in time. So, it was a little, there's obviously the positive of what they bring. But, obviously with the first round draft pick, you're going to be more critical just because of the draft capital that you're going to put in there. And then also the financial capital, because they have guaranteed contracts for 4 years. You have the 5th-year option. You've seen a lot of guys had theirs picked up today or the last couple of days. Because with the first round draft pick, you can extend their rookie contract to 5 years, so you keep them around. Things like that. So you're making a major financial investment, and then also in terms of roster construction, you're trying to have that player be a foundational player at that position group, whichever one it is. It did take a turn a little bit with those guys, but there are those questions that have been around with either and both of Gregory Rousseau and Jaylen Phillips. But, there were some others as well, like Kadarius Toney went 20th overall. Whoa, that seems aggressive, And again, not saying he's not good. Obviously, like, he did numbers. He had that long touchdown against University of Miami last year, 2 years ago, when there were 7 guys around him and you had the still shot of that and people still put that up. He scored on this play. You're like, what? Yeah, he's an electric player. Like, he's very fast. He has a skill set that fits at the NFL level. I get why you would try to stack him and everything like that. It's just number 20 seemed a little high. There were some other guys, Alex Leatherwood, the former 5-star recruiter, went to Alabama, projects probably as a guard at the, NFL level, but he goes 24th. You're like, that's aggressive, as well. So it was not exclusive to the Miami guys that had, maybe some questions along with the accolades, but that was kind of when it started from, this is a great pick, this is what this guy brings, this is a great pick, this is what this guy brings, to this is a great guy, there's a good story. But I will agree that kind of did start around that Jaylen Phillips pick around, what was that, 18?
Do you agree with the assessment that was made multiple times last night, and I've heard it in the past, that a number of Rousseau's sacks were coverage help
mean,
and otherwise inferior opponents and so forth.
Right. You're going to have, I mean, if you're a monster, you're playing inferior opponents anyway. Like so are we going to discount the numbers that the Alabama guys did because they have this legendary team that's recruited, 5-star after 5-star year over year? And so, I mean, if you're playing, is the SEC a strong conference? Absolutely. But there's many a team in that conference that are completely overmatched by Alabama. So are we going to ding them for that kind of performance? You know what I mean? So like Gregory Rousseau, he didn't start until ACC play. So you have a lot of things that went with that. And so all of this, the majority of his production and performance came against ACC teams. So I'm going to push back on that just because I think that's not authentic to the process. Just saying, it's inferior opponents. He was on the bench when we played the inferior opponents, to be perfectly honest. So there's that for one. 2, 15.5 sacks is not by happenstance. So even if you get, let's say, a fifth of those, right? Let's say 3 of those 15.5 were coverage sacks. That's still 12.5 times he got there. Now, if you want to talk about the fact that either half or more than half of his sacks came on inside moves or aligned from an interior alignment as opposed to a outside defensive end rushing around the edge of a tackle and bending the edge and getting there. If you want to talk about that, there's a point for conversation. Say, okay, I'm not sure if he has the consistency or the ability to bend that edge and be an edge rusher from the outside so much because he would rotate to the inside and he was very valuable and even from a defensive end position, twisting inside against guards and centers, or again in the speed package, moving inside to a defensive tackle and rushing from there. And then he was overmatching those guys because they are not proficient pass blockers. That would be the point of conversation. But saying, there was a lot of coverage sacks. Miami secondary was garbage that year. You know what I mean? That was the year after we had the number 1 passing defense in America. That wasn't even the good, defensive backfield year. So, and again, I was there. I watched it. We talked about it. You can go look at the stats. So like if a lot of these draft pundits are thinking in their head, you remember Miami's defense was really good in 2017 and 18, and they had this really good defensive backfield. The secondary was great. They were top 25 and then number 1, pass defense and everything. And that's what helped Gregory Rousseau. He redshirted he was a recruit the one year. He redshirted the other year. The year that he played was after that. So they're conflating things by giving a glance and not a full look. So yeah, I disagree and I push back on that a little bit of saying, it was just helped by coverage sacks. Gregory Rousseau's motor is obviously always running. You can see him chase down plays. So he did, and he's 17 feet tall with a 22-foot wingspan. So he could reach out, from here to Hialeah and grab an ankle and get a sack. So just because of his length, fine, he's 6'7" with a 83-inch wingspan or whatever, 85, whatever it is, to not be super, hyperbolic. But he's still bigger and longer than lots of guys. So he might be able to extend his area of reach to get sacks that other guys might not. But just saying entirely, all of his performance is based upon the success elsewhere on the defense. I think that's completely disingenuous and not respectful to what he did as a player.
At least when you pile up 15.5 sacks, those 15.5 sacks have to be evaluated. Whereas Jayson Oweh of Penn State was a first-round pick with 0 sacks.
0 sacks last year, 5.5 for his career. And Miami recruited Jayson Oweh a little bit. And I made the comparison. I said, he's defensive David Njoku because an absolute athletic freak. You look at this guy, you look at his measurables, everything. Oh, he ran a 4.39. That's what I'm talking about. I don't remember if I tweeted it or if I wrote it on the website, but we were recruiting him back when he chose Penn State. He was a late riser, obviously, a Nigerian native, very athletic, incredibly well built and everything like that. But that's why I said he's defensive David Njoku. But offensively, David Njoku obviously had more performance than Jayson Oweh. But he's a pick completely on athleticism and potential. Completely on that. Now every time about, run defense and just kind of being around and finding nose of the ball. Okay, if you're talking, from the line of scrimmage in that first little bit of the front 7 box area, sure, cool. But like you brought him in as an edge rusher and everything, and you said, last year at Penn State he had 0 sacks. 0? And it's like, oh, well, yeah, they were Tom Bradying the ball. It's 1-2, the ball got out. Every single game, every single snap, there wasn't a single snap. And you get a snack or a sack in college for being in the general area of somebody who tripped over the 35-yard line. You know what I mean? And you couldn't, in all of those snaps in all of those games, there was not even any kind of scenario that you got a sack. I'm not sure. But, no, Jason Noe is incredibly athletic. Incredibly.
To his defense, they missed 3 games, and they would have played a couple more games in postseason, whatever. Sure. But still, he still played 9 games. And I believe it was Louis Riddick in particular said in watching the Indiana game, if anyone remembers that game, that was game number 1 last year. Indiana pulled off a big upset, great game, crazy finish, the whole deal, overtime, that he was that close to the quarterback every play.
Yeah, exactly. Right. He was right there. He was right there. He's right there. Almost always counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. You know what I mean? But in this case, if you're always right there, and then to the credit of, Jaylen Phillips or Gregory Rousseau, if you're almost there, then you're pushing that guy into somebody else. So now you're going to have Jaylen Phillips. You're going to have Jonathan Ford, a Jared Harrison Hunt, a Quincy Roche. There's going to be somebody else to clean that up. But just like, he just speed rushed around the outside and he was almost that close. Yeah. Athleticism is great. And obviously in sports, you want to have athleticism, but functional athleticism, because if you're fast enough to get around that corner, then you want to see the tangible product of a play made, not just the narrative after the fact of, while you guys were watching stats, I watched every single snap, and he was almost. Because sometimes those almost guys turn into actual guys. You know what I mean? Where I almost was able to do this, and now I can actually do this. Sometimes those almost guys stay almost.
Sacks are definitely a sexy stat, and I think they're generally legitimate because it's not so much the stat of the sack in and of itself, but the extrapolation that a guy that gets 12 or 15 sacks typically is not just pressuring the quarterback 12 or 15 times. He is more likely than the guy that got 4 or 5 sacks to be pressuring the quarterback triple the time, just in addition to getting to the quarterback triple the time, affecting the quarterback and pressuring the quarterback triple the time of the guy with the 4 to 5 sacks.
Exactly.
All right. Jaylen Phillips, of course, we'll get to that analysis, but just to get a question in here from Mark Jean, just getting your projection, Cam, on when Quincy Roche may get drafted.
I think Quincy Roche is probably going to be a 3 or a 4. I think it would be really great for him to sneak into the backside of this second round, maybe. He performed very well at the Senior Bowl, and literally ran circles around Alex Leatherwood, who ended up being first-round draft pick from Alabama. So, I think that maybe the teams that were there coaching at the Senior Bowl are going to look at him because they got to work with him, maybe those position coaches and things like that. But off the top of my head, I would say probably 3rd, maybe 4th round for Roche. To the earlier question, it's between Roche for the next Kane off the board. It's between Roche and Brevin Jordan. And I think the middle of the second round, so probably around we start with 33 today, so probably 48 to 50 is where I would say be on alert to maybe see either or both of those guys come off the board. I reasonably expect both of them to come off the board today in the 2nd and 3rd round. Jose Boraguel is the best kicker in the draft. I just don't think that you're going to take a specialist this high, because you're not Al Davis taking Sebastian Janikowski 22nd overall or whatever it was. And ironically, that pick actually really worked out for them because he was there forever and was incredible. We all made the jokes at the time, but Hall of Fame career. So, yeah. But I would say, yeah, Boraguel is whenever the earliest you feel comfortable taking a kicker. And so probably mid-5th on for him. But I think it's reasonable to expect that both Brevin Jordan and Quincy Roche come off the board today. If I had to choose, I would say probably Roche first, just because He's a more proven product, and it's the proof is in the fact that he played 5 years and he didn't miss all these games for injury like Brevin Jordan did. That's the concern, I think. But having been the AAC Defensive Player of the Year and then coming back and having a stronger overall season, although his statistics went down a little bit just because Jaylen Phillips was getting all these sacks, and you have a little added, pressure or you added attention paid to Quincy Roche, and then the way that he tested at the Senior Bowl, the way he performed that week and everything, I would say probably Roche over Jordan, but both of those guys should come off the board today.
We'll get your take on Jaylen Phillips, but I'm sure you can, as a recruiting expert, answer this question if you really give it a couple seconds of thought. Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Surtain, Justin Fields, Micah Parsons, Alex Leatherwood, Jaylen Phillips, Najee Harris, what do they all have in common?
They were number one at their positions as recruits.
Yeah, 5 stars. Yep.
And all 5 stars. Yeah, I mean, 5 stars, but they were all like the number one at their respective positions in their respective years as well.
Just to highlight something that Cam hammers home a number of times in regards to the star ratings. Yes, they're not perfect, but in mass, they mean a lot.
Right.
7 of the top 32 players in the NFL draft. And somebody might on the surface say, whoa, that's only 7 out of 32. Well, there's only like 35 5 stars in each class. So there's not many of them. And so basically all 7 of these guys either came from the same class or one of the same 2 classes, probably.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, you have that, and then just, 4-star after 4-star after 4-star as well. J.C. Horn, I didn't know this, but that's Joe Horn's son. Joe Horn used to play for the Saints. I knew the kid. I just didn't put 2 and 2 together. So, obviously, Pat Surtain Jr., the name. But he was a 4-star. Travis Etienne was a 4-star. He's a guy that Miami kicked the tires on, and then obviously he decided to go elsewhere, but even a Jamar Chase, that's a kid. He was a 4-star, 5-star borderline kind of player. He was committed to Kansas for a while. Him and the Devontae Jason or whatever kid from Louisiana, and we all knew they weren't going to go there, and he didn't. And obviously, you see what he's done. But yeah, even if it wasn't 4-star or 5, even not a 5-star, there were so many 4-star guys that your blue chip recruits. It matters. And then you get guys like a Gregory Rousseau, one of the few 3-stars who was taken. But again, Gregory Rousseau was 6'5.5", 6'6", 205 pounds, playing wide receiver and safety. He's grown an inch and a half. He's put on 70 pounds, completely changed to, from being a edge of the field, a perimeter skill player, to coming down to the, end of the line, and well, hey, and then some people are saying, maybe we put on 20 or 30 pounds and he can play inside and outside, a la Calais Campbell at that 6'7", 6'8" height or something like that. But, when you have 3-stars who get to this level and become first-round draft picks, their bodies changed. Period and stop. Look at J.J. Watt. His body completely changed from when he was at Central Michigan as a tight end, left there, went to Wisconsin. He grew 3 inches and gained 50 pounds of lean muscle. Look at Khalil Mack. Look at Gregory Rousseau, like I'm talking about. That's the difference. Whereas, Trevor Lawrence dropped a couple percent body fat and gained like 10 pounds. He's not he doesn't look very different than he did. It's like a sophomore, junior in high school. You know what I mean? That's the difference of the pedigree of the size of a 5-star recruit, because the size matters in that as well. So, but yeah, it just, when you're at the top, are evaluated to be that, because you're bigger, faster, and stronger. That kind of is a good thing when you're talking about athletics.
Yeah, Jaylen Phillips was one of the guys that was most prominently discussed and analyzed after the draft pick came in as being can't miss, being that good.
Yeah, I mean, he was the number 1 overall recruit in the 2017 class, played well at UCLA, had some injury things. He medically retired out there. And famously, he went to go work in the music industry out there as an intern, and, said he has passion for that. And hey, I'm wearing my old Miramar Chorus t-shirt, one of the last ones I had. So with a music degree in my pocket, trust and believe, I understand that passion for music. It lives in my soul in a different kind of space. And I'm glad to hear that. But he's like, you know what? I want to see what I can do in the world of football. Maybe I can, change that up. And Jaylen Phillips has himself said, Los Angeles raised him, but Miami saved him in a major way. The city and the program and everything. So, there's that side-by-side picture of Jaylen Phillips on campus when he first got here, looking very thin, just a tall baseball player build almost, you know what I mean? Just tall and lean, walking around with his backpack and everything, to the monster you see now. I don't know what he was weighing in then, but it couldn't have been more than 210, but he's 270. So, yeah.
When he arrived at Miami, not at UCLA? Really?
Yeah. Because he was in the 240 range coming out of high school, so he had size to him. But he had stopped really training like that, stopped lifting like that and everything. I'll see if I can find this, but he looked very, very thin, for a defensive end, and then really set about that work of, getting in the weight room and putting pounds on. You see how built he is now. But, yeah, he was probably 210, 215 tops, because you're still 6'6", so you're going to have some weight to you. But, yeah, he's gained probably 50, 55 pounds. And you look at his size on the field, you look at him with his shirt off at the Canes Pro Day and everything, it's very different. So he's a guy who has all the skills in the world. And I think that I get where the injury concerns come for him, because, he medically retired based upon the guidance from UCLA. He had, the injury and everything. He hurt his wrist. He had to have a bone taken out of his hand. He wears a wrist brace when he lifts heavy and things like that. I get it. But he didn't miss any time here. You know what I mean? I think that's really in the past. But in that it's happened before, you can't completely ignore that, and I get that. But he was the number one recruit in America for a reason. He flashed really incredibly his first year at UCLA. Yeah, he had a little ankle tweak because somebody landed on his ankle. It wasn't just I'm walking down campus and all of a sudden my ankle hurts. The dude landed on his ankle in a game. You see what I'm saying? But yeah, no, Jaylen Phillips is a great, great, great pick. He just stays in Miami, or he comes back. Obviously, he took his stuff, when he left for Miami to train for the draft and everything. But, Hard Rock Stadium, same locker room, all those kind of things. It's really great for him, and very happy for him.
Cam Underwood, State of the U, talking up the Canes here every week with us here at the Voice of College Football. We've got a limited time. I will get through as many questions as possible to serve those up to Cam.
I'll keep my answers a little shorter. I saw in there somebody put in that Miami has the number 72 class for 2022. We only have one player committed right now, and that's okay. That's fine. But it will not end at number 72. I would bet good money that we are more likely to end at a higher number or a lower, closer to number one, whatever you want to call it, class than Florida State will end up with. So, and I saw that was a Florida State avatar with that one. Yeah.
I enjoy hosting these Miami and Florida State shows each week, getting it from both sides.
You never quit, and we never quit either. So I'm good with it.
I arrived at a 77% for Miami's chances.
Okay.
The host one, I had him on earlier yesterday, and he brought that up, and I whoa. And then I explained the whole process. I'm not going to waste time here to let people know, because then, of course, I got criticized by some people that said, "Oh, you back down to Cam," and I said, "You should have watched long enough to see Cam and I interact and me interact. That hey, if I feel like somebody just pointed out something to me and enlightened me, I'm going to correct. But I don't back down from anyone. If I would have felt, regardless of what he said, that I still was convicted by 58%, I would argue the 58%.
And it's gone the other way in the past as well. So, I mean, that's fine. But yeah, that's funny. Okay, so yeah, closer to 4 out of 5.
I felt good with 80 out of 80-20 neutral site, and then so I gave him a 3% in Tallahassee. Anyway, more importantly, somebody asked about Jeff Thomas's prospects of playing in the NFL.
I mean, hope and pray. Honestly, he has all the speed in the world and everything. But Jeff Thomas is well publicized off the field issues. He's been, maybe he's got to be a guy who's going to be a practice squad guy and then maybe get a chance on a roster. But we've seen guys as talented as him or more talented, unfortunately, just because of other issues, not necessarily make it. So I'm rooting for Jeff Thomas. I hope that he gets that opportunity. He did very well in Patriots camp last year. made it to final cuts, if I remember correctly. So has a very talented guy, and I hope that it works out for him. But I think that he and everybody knows that that's a tough path ahead for him into the league.
Talking Miami football with all of you. And this is off the beaten path in regards to Miami, but I do think that it's alarming for the Big 12 Conference. I wouldn't make a big deal out of this normally, but this is a growing trend. This has been happening for years, and they had no players. The entire conference, Northwestern, had 2 players drafted in the first round last night, and the Big 12 had 0.
Yeah, and maybe they're talking about the fact that they'll get some guys in these upcoming drafts. So this was the kind of just the in between for them, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, because it has been, and I think it's because some of the bigger teams, Texas, are not performing to the level that they desire. In terms of, I think there was a question about, do I think that T-Rob can help coach Tyreek Stevenson to be a first rounder like he did with J.C. Horn, because they're similar kind of players? I think it's possible. I think that down the line, Tyreek Stevenson is going to end up at safety in the league. I think he's like an Antro role. That he's a big bodied guy. And, for a few couple of years while you're young and everything and have the top end of your, speed and potential, I think that, he'll be able to stick a corner. But I think that probably within the next, if we count his college year or two, within probably the next 6 seasons, he's probably going to move to safety. But I think along the way, he's a blue chip recruit. He's a big, incredibly large player, 6'1", 208 or something like that. Again, similar size to an Antro role at cornerback. I think that the potential is there, but we need to just kind of round out all the parts of his performance. There was a great breakdown of the spring game on our site, State of the U, by Roman. He was talking about the quarterbacks, but he also highlighted how Tyreek Stevenson, read a pattern and made a play in the end zone because they ran a little smash route. So he, kind of figured out what was going to left his man to go disrupt the play. So it does have a good IQ. He has a good head for the game. But I think that it's possible. Obviously, because T-Rob is a very good defensive backs coach, and we see that even last night he had another first-round draft pick. So between, Bubba Bolden, who I saw was mentioned in there, Tyreek Stevenson, I think that you have guys of the requisite size that you need as well to really be considered for first-round draft picks. So it's possible, but we'll see what happens.
The conference count for the first round was SEC 12, Big Ten 7, ACC 6, Pac-12 3, American Conference 2, Independence 1, and, of course, the FCS 1 with Trey Lance. And since 2011, I've got a note here that Alabama's had 36 first-rounders since 2011, and the Big 12 has had 33.
And if you take, and Alabama tied Miami's record for most first-round draft picks last night in 2004 with 6. So the other, 12 schools, 13, how many are in the SEC? 14?
14, yep.
Yeah, so the other 13 schools had 6 players total. You know what I mean? So, and the ACC was actually, if we're going to be real about it, it was Clemson, us, and who's the other one? It was 3 teams from the ACC. It was Clemson, Miami, and Virginia Tech.
Yeah, 2,
Darisaw
right?
and Fall. Yeah, so I'm saying, but so, while we're talking about that, it was, 3 teams had 2 each from the ACC, and everybody else had 0. So, it's it was a little different, but we're working on that and hopefully continue to keep performing, keep developing, so we're pushing more and more of these guys towards the top end of the draft.
A couple of people had commented on who you project to be draft picks next year. Of course, they've got to play a full season of college football and go through all the workouts and combines before we get a finished product, but it's a lot of speculation there.
Draft picks at all? Derek King is a draft pick. He's a guy who, you're going to probably talk about switching a position with. I think Cam Harris can be a draft pick towards the, day 3 kind of part of the draft. Charleston Rambo, Mike Harley, Will Mallory, Navon Donaldson. On defense, maybe Nesta, Bolden, Stevenson, depending on what they do with coming back. I mean, probably not towards the top. I wouldn't say that. But I would say, like, off the top of my head, those are the guys who I think it would be reasonable to expect if they were to leave that they would be draft picks off the top. Oh, and Lewis Headley, the punter, because he's like 30 years old and there's no way he's coming back for another year. And he'll get drafted. But outside of those guys, I think that's, again, off the top of my head, reasonable for who I think if they left would be a draft pick.
Folks, please hit the like button, and also keep in mind that the super chat is available as well. Cam donates his time here each and every week. We got Ahmad, who's pretty much just wanting your thoughts about the possible development that Travaris Robinson can provide for DJ Ivey.
I mean, I don't think that there's anybody in the secondary who would not benefit from development under the tutelage of T-Rob and DeMarcus Van Dyke in his first on-field coaching role. I think that it comes down to the work that they're willing to put in and how coachable that they want to be, because sometimes you understand, okay, I've gotten here because of my status as a recruit or my physicality or my performance in, small doses, because of course everybody can improve, but just really being committed to that process of developing that process of hard work, and just investing in yourself and your craft. And I think that everybody can benefit from that, especially because the secondary is going to have to be one of the strengths of our team, because safety is the most talented position group on the roster. And with the second level of the defense, the linebackers not necessarily being the greatest, you're going to really have to lean on that group in the secondary a lot more. And you bring in Tyreek Stevenson, who's a blue chip recruit. Then you're saying, okay, you have DJ Ivey and Al Blaze. They're coming back. Corey Couch is coming back. Then you have other guys, Isaiah Dunson and Marcus Clark on this roster, who need to step forward. So they're going to have to be able to do that. But to be able to step forward, I think that's going to take player development from everybody. And I think everybody can benefit, from the tutelage of T-Rob.
Here's my question. Getting back to the current 2021 team. We just saw a spring game in which Jake Garcia and Tyler Van Dyke impressed. We know what the situation is involving De'Ara King, that it's an uncertain situation. It's hopeful. He's ahead of the curve. He's progressing. What would you expect? And not that we're going to be able to know this, but what would you expect those two guys, given this opportunity especially, but even under normal conditions, would do from the time that spring game ended till August 1st, when they are officially in camp, to prepare themselves as best possible to be leaders of those of that offensive unit? Work.
I mean, there's not a workout that they're going to miss. They're going to call extra. Hey, you want to stay extra and run some routes. You want to watch film. You're going to be in the weight room. You're going to be in the sun, outside here in South Florida, working, sweating, literal blood, sweat, and tears put into this. But it's one of those things where if you want to be great, you're going to have to make the sacrifices. You know what I mean? And things like that. Think of like a high school kid, right, who needs to work to support their family, right? So they're going to get that part-time job. Now they're going to miss some of those social things, right? But they're going to put in that work to better themselves. Maybe they're saving for college. Maybe they're trying to help out around the house, all those kind of things. But that work that they put in, you're going to see the tangible result. The same thing here with these quarterbacks. Yeah, you could go hang out. Yeah, you could go home to SoCal. Yeah, you could go back to Connecticut and things like that. But you know what? For now and the future, I'm going to put the investment of time in. I'm going to be here. So, yeah, you want to go up to Traz Powell and run routes? You want to go over to Tropical Park, which is around the corner from the University of Miami campus? You want to go, wherever? Fine. Hey, show me the best soul food restaurant in your hood. You know what I'm saying? Romello Brinson down here over by the West, right? Okay, take me to the city. Show me that. Let me meet your people on the block where you had that commitment party. I want to shake everybody's hand. I want that everybody up. I want to be around. And after that, we're going to do our community service, because Miami is very strong on the community service side. We're going to go to this elementary school right here off of 27th, but we're going to have the football in the car. And when we get done with that, we're going to go over to the park. We're going to run routes. We're going to do all those things and be fully invested. And because That's how I'm going to get better, and that's how I'm going to be better with and for you, so that when I hit the field with you next year and the year after, we're not going to learn each other then. We're learning each other now, so that in 2022 and 23, when it's 3rd and 17 and we're down by 4 and we got to get a first down right now to extend this drive to get a touchdown to win this game, I've been there with you. I've been working with you. I have that trust already built in. You don't got to worry about, well, what is he been doing? I've stayed after. I've seen him working. He's been with Coach Lashley. He's been with these other coaches. He's looked at the playbook. He's watched the film. We've looked at our side adjustments for if they do this, if they shade me inside, outside. You already know all that stuff. You know what I mean? So that has to be the investment right now. And like, yeah, you got a lot of extra reps this spring because Jared King wasn't there. Those reps don't stop. They won't stop because Jared King tweeted a thing cryptically, but I think he's trying to be on pace for full go by July the 1st. With his knee rehab moving towards the summer or towards the fall camp. That's great. But in the interim, it's about to be May 1st tomorrow. So that gives me all of May, all of June. So I got another 2 full months before number 1 is 100% back. And I'm going to take advantage of every single day. And that would be my expectation. And if you have one of those quarterbacks who is not that kind of maniacal about it, that's already telling about yourself. Because even if you're very talented, talent only succeeds with the requisite work. You know what I mean? So if there's one of those guys who's doing all this stuff and the other of those 2 guys is chilling and on vacation and things like that, posted up on Instagram with some IG model, which, hey, go and do that. But also, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I expect somebody to really work their ass off.
Is that a poke at a former Miami quarterback?
Nope.
Or is that okay?
That was a general statement.
Okay. I thought maybe we're going.
No, and I mean like posted up like
okay.
on vacation, chilling on the beach with somewhere other than doing this work. If all those are the things that you're putting out there, that's what I meant. I meant that actually. I was not digging at any individual player, current, former, or otherwise. Because to be perfectly honest, I'm going to think about it.
Did you see tangibles in Manny Diaz as an in-game coach that was an improvement from 2019 to 2020? And what would be the growth that would need to occur for you to see similar progress this year?
Second half adjustments were better. Second half timeout management was better. I want to see the week-to-week preparation become better, because there were a lot of games when Miami was, either close or tied or down at the half and should not have been. And I think that was just because, and there was, again, so many times, well, they did something we didn't expect, or they did something different. They did, like, yeah, you got to prepare for what they present on film, but you also have to self-scout and say, okay, if I were going against us, what would I do differently? You know what I mean? Because teams are invariably finding those different things that are tripping us up. So I want to see that he's able to think out of the box ahead of time and be prepared for those things. First half timeout management also, because, you can't take them with you or anything, but I want to stop seeing us take 2 timeouts in the first quarter, things like that. Also just playing the best players. JP wrote about it on the side and we've talked about it. Seniority it's a factor, but it cannot be the only factor in who plays. And continuing to play players who I think would be better served on the bench while you have other guys. Look at Gregory Rousseau. Like we talked about last week, if you were to turn sometimes in the late afternoon, evening of Saturday night, I'm going to steal your line. If you were to look at ESPN, you would have seen the guy who played in front of Gregory Rousseau. And it's not that guy's fault or anything, but like Gregory Rousseau played a singular season of college football and was a first-round draft pick and had 15 and a half sacks. So like, why did it take so long and why were you stashing him behind? Oh, well, the other guy's great in the classroom. You can be great in the classroom. Again, I'm a scholar. I went to the University of Miami and graduated with honors. That's wonderful. But like, we're talking about sports here. I need you to be a better athlete. I need to be a better football player. And I think that we need to elevate those guys. So looking at that, playing the better guys, even if they're a little bit younger, within reason. Obviously, you're not just going to take somebody fresh up the turnip truck, but I mean, guys who are ready, and there are plenty of guys who are ready, i.e. this year, Avante Williams needs to either start or be at the top of that safety rotation. He needs to play heavy snaps, and he's proven it. But yeah, he's a little young and he doesn't know everything yet. Well, then damn it, teach him on the field. But he's an incredible talent and showcased it during the spring game. So there's that. But yeah, I want to see the week-to-week operations and preparation become better. I want to see first half timeout management and game management be better, especially coming off the sideline off of a turnover or a kickoff. Because, I mean, there's nothing worse than like, the other team scores and they kick the ball off. Okay, and then you get a timeout before a delay game on the first snap coming off the sideline. What are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? Like, that doesn't make any kind of sense. And the killer instinct, too. I love the fact that a Manny Diaz coached team has now taken on the mentality that we're not going to quit ever. And he's been very staunch on that since he got this job 2 years ago. Said, we're going to play hard. We're not going to quit. Even if we lose, even when we get beat, like, BGPO Football Funk said, UNC will beat Miami by 30 this year. Well, that'll cut the deficit in half for us from last year. So I guess that'd be positive movement. But even in that game, in that game, we saw some guys quit. But there were a lot of guys who didn't quit. But that's the hallmark of a Manny Diaz team, is that they're not going to quit. I want to see them not quit. But I also want to see them kick somebody's ass and not quit. You know what I mean? Like, it just keep going, roll them over. Don't get it and then, okay, we're going to, get a big lead or a decent lead. We're going to throttle down. Nah. Just like Jimmy Johnson used to say, the third string deserves to pass the ball. They want to go out here and run the full thing. So it's not my fault that we have talented guys back here on the second and third string. It's your job to stop them. I want to see that kind of thing. Not just from the first team. And we blew some teams out. Hey, Florida State. Hey, Louisville. Yeah, we did some of that. But I want to keep it going. Keep it going. Keep it going. And I want to see somebody break out. I want to see one of these freshman running backs have that freshman Frank Gore kind of a thing. 3 carries for 122 yards and 3 touchdowns, or 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. That's what I'm trying to see.
Yeah, you would think with the disparity between Miami's roster as a top 15-ish roster and some of the teams that they skated by a score against Virginia, Virginia Tech, etc., that you're not going to kill everybody by 50 points in a conference like the ACC. Right. But that you would have more of those type of 42-17 type of games.
Right, in those games, the Virginia Tech games, that North Carolina State game, that should have been along those lines. It shouldn't have been 44-41. That's what I'm talking about. But just extending out and having that be the thing instead of, okay, 1 point here, 3 points here. And again, I'm going to take a close win. I'm going to take an ugly win because we've been here and seen close and medium and blowout losses for years. So I'm not ever going to say this is a terrible win. I'm going to say maybe we need to fix some things and it didn't look as good as I wanted it to, but I would rather win than not. But also with some of these teams like you're talking about, if you have a top 15-ish roster and a top 70-ish roster, we need to actually show that on the scoreboard a little bit more. And that's one of the last things I would say is a room for growth and development with a Manny Diaz coached team.
Yes, BGPO Football Funk. Of course, I'm going to honor your super chat by reading it off. Thank you so much for that. That North Carolina will beat Miami by 30 or so this year. Who knows? That the difference between the two teams is not 30 points, but they actually went out and did it. Yes, they did this past year.
That is correct.
All right, Cam. Well, we've got the NFL draft coming up in about 15 minutes. Hope everyone has a good time watching it. You as well. And I'm going to be here taking calls from everyone after the draft. Nice. All right, man.
Yeah, so, hopefully we have another couple of draft profiles all the draft profiles are up, but hopefully a couple of draft notification pieces come up tonight. You guys continue to enjoy that. Continue to rock with us over at State of the U. It's got a stateoftheu.com, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the State of the U. Got a bunch of things going on over there always. But obviously the NFL draft is our central focus right now. But yeah, figured we keep it to a tight 45 tonight. You guys can get back to watching that and everything, and we'll check in with you soon.
Please hit the like button on your way out. See you, Cam. Thanks, man.
See you, everybody. Take care.